Alright, so it's the 5th of July 2015 and I'm standing here on the street where I grew up. I've got my bicycle here which has my camera equipment mounted on it, and in this video I'm going to give a tour of a bike commute that I used to do about 5 years ago. Alright, so here we go. We're just approaching the main street through this neighborhood, which is called Whitburn Street. We're going to make a right turn onto there, and now we're heading in the south direction. This commute for me was probably equally directions south and west. Going in a similar direction as my dad would have done during his commute. And last summer I posted a video showing the commute that he used to do to work. Starting from the very same house. Although I take some different roads than he does because I'm not going quite as far west as him. This commute for me is only about 10 kilometers, where his was substantially more, closer to 15 I believe. So this is Rosslyn Road, which is a major east-west arterial. As you can see, there's very little traffic right now. Depending on how early in the morning I would go, there might be not very many cars crossing there. So we're now riding through another neighborhood. The street here is called White Ash, and you'll notice that along this street there's a lot of brand new trees that are planted along the boulevards of these lots. You know, all the trees are very small, just little, you know, saplings like that one there. That's because they had to cut down all the trees that were on here because of the emerald ash disease that's going on in this part of the world. Some kind of an insect or disease that goes around and infects all the ash trees. Well, the street here is called White Ash, and it used to have, I guess, all the trees on it were ash trees because they all had to get cut down, and they've now been replaced with new trees. Back there, when we went through that intersection, if we had turned left there, that would have led to one of my old elementary schools, the one I went to from grade 3 until grade 5, so 3, 4, and 5, 3 years, called Palmerston Avenue. Although Palmerston Avenue is no longer there, the school is no longer there, they tore it down a few years ago. Alright, turning left here. This is called Cochrane, and it's a semi-busy northwest arterial. I didn't ride on this for very far, because it is a fairly busy road. There's lots of quieter options after we get over this hill here, which is a railway overpass. I believe this is the CP Rail, Canadian Pacific Railway. So when you've got a city that has railway crossings or highway crossings, or river crossings I guess, then it really limits the areas where you can go and cross over them. So for example, that railway crossing like back there, I have to ride across that railway crossing on a road like Cochrane because all of the smaller streets that cross it, or there are no smaller streets that cross it. Alright, so I'm going to turn left here, and since there's nobody around at all, I'm just going to go ahead. Another thing I've been noticing as I've been riding through Whitby is you see these boxes on the left-hand side. There's another set over here on the right-hand side. Those are our new mailboxes in this part of Whitby. In Canada, it used to work that it used to be that when I was, I guess, before I was even born, if you lived in a house in Canada, you got your mail delivered right to your door. And then at one point they said, okay, we got to stop doing that. But then they just kind of grandfathered in. So all the new houses that got built, or all the new neighborhoods that got built, they built these mailboxes like we saw, kind of similar to the ones we just saw there on the right. They built these, you know, those little boxes with little mail slots in them. They call them super boxes. So if you live in a neighborhood, then you would have to walk to those to get your mail. However, they kind of grandfathered it in, so they only did it for the new neighborhoods that were built. If you lived in a house that was in an old neighborhood, you still got your door-to-door delivery. And they kept doing that until a few years ago, and now they've been saying, okay, we know you've been delivering mail to these older houses all this time, but we got to stop doing that. It's just way too expensive. So now they're building these super boxes for these neighborhoods that never had to go to super boxes before. So I've really been noticing them now that I'm in Whitby. They haven't started really doing that in Toronto yet. Alright, so turning right here onto Palace Street. So we're just getting into I guess this is the older part of Whitby, the downtown Whitby. We will be crossing one of the main streets shortly. But the original Whitby was a grid of streets that, you know, all met each other at 90 degrees, and they were all, you know, uniform distance apart. And then when Whitby expanded, it became a suburb of Toronto, and they started building, you know, all these big subdivisions. And with the subdivisions, they no longer built in the grid like you see here. They built them in, you know, kind of an inclusive neighborhood with streets that curved and, you know, dead end courts and stuff like that, like where I started. Unfortunately, those kind of neighborhoods generally don't tend to be very bike friendly because a lot of the streets don't go through. And then when going from one neighborhood to the next, the streets often don't line up. Subdivisions are really designed with the car in mind, not with the pedestrian or the cyclist. The idea was just to get you efficiently from your house onto the main arterial, like Rosslyn Road. And once you were there with your car, you could drive wherever you wanted. But I always enjoy riding through the older part of Whitby. So we're just approaching Dundas Street, which is one of the main streets of Whitby. The center of town is probably about a half kilometer to the left of us right now. So if we were to turn left at this traffic light, it would take us over towards the other main street, which is called Brock Street. And I'm gonna get a red light here. So Brock and Dundas is the center of town. Whitby doesn't really have a very big downtown. All right, so this nice looking building over there on the right, that's the new Whitby Public Library. It was built when I was in high school. It sits on the site of the old Whitby Public Library. The main Whitby Public Library used to be there as well. And the big courtyard there at the front, that was the footprint of the old Whitby Public Library. So they built the new library around it, and then they tore down the old library and turned it into a courtyard. Now, it's a very nice building. So this street here I'm on is called Henry Street, and it was, back in the day, it was a pretty busy street. This leads to the GO station, which is the commuter train that goes to Toronto. Now it's actually under construction right now, and the road is closed to vehicles, but it's still open enough that you can ride a bike on it. So I'll still continue with what my commute would have been like back in the day, although the road has changed quite a bit. Because they're doing a big repaving job, and they're also putting in a storm sewer into the street, because the street used to just have drainage ditches on the two sides, so water would run into the ditches and get carried away that way. But now they're modernizing it and making it into a more like a typical city street that has, you know, a proper drainage, and that has the sewer grates on both sides for the water to drain into. So I apologize if this part if the video becomes kind of shaky here. Don't worry, this won't last very long, just a short stretch. But yeah, as I was saying, so right now, of course, there's no traffic on it. But back in the day when I would have been doing this commute, there'd be quite a lot of traffic coming down here. And this really wasn't the ideal choice of roads. But similarly to like how we rode on Cochrane, near the beginning of the commute for that short distance, riding on Henry Street is kind of necessary as well, because we need to be able to get over the next set of train tracks, as well as the 401, which is our major highway that runs into Whitby. So of course it'd be great to take, you know, a quieter street, but as soon as you got to those barriers, the 401 or the CN railway, you'd be at a dead end. And this traffic light up ahead, this didn't used to be a traffic light, it used to be a four-way stop for so many years, and they're finally, with widening the streets, they're now able to put a left-hand turn lane in. But this was a really big area for backing up traffic, especially like when a GO train arrives. You've got, you know, a train full of people that all have their own cars, and they all get in their car and drive, and most of them are driving north, coming in the opposite direction of the direction that we're going right now. And a lot of them will get stuck there at the four-way stop. Now this bike lane here did not used to be here. This section here looked just like, you know, what we were riding on back there. Or before that, it was just like, it had the drainage ditches with no sewers or curbs or anything like that. So when they redeveloped it, thankfully they put a bike lane in here. Although, it's a very short bike lane for right now. I'm hoping they'll, when they finish the part that we were just riding over that was gravel, I'm hoping that they will put a bike lane in there too. And the bike lane ends here. And this first bridge is the bridge over the 401. You hear all the traffic. And now if I was to turn left up here, that would lead me to the Whitby GO station, which is the, as I said, the commuter train which leads into Toronto from out here in the suburbs. It takes about an hour to get into Union Station, which is the middle of Toronto. And that's the transportation that I use to get out to Whitby these days to come and visit my folks. And now this bridge here we just went over is the actual train track. So there's two barriers there, the 401 as well as the CN rail track that you have to get over. And that's why I took Henry Street. On the right over here, that's a sports complex called Iroquois Park, where all the arenas are, as well as a big swimming pool. When I was growing up, it was, you know, the biggest sports complex in all of Canada. It had 6 arenas in it, you know, which is more than anywhere else. And they were just kind of added on over time. The arena just kept getting, the sports complex just kept getting bigger and bigger as they added more arenas. But since then, I believe there's lots of other sports complexes that have even more arenas. This road here is called Victoria Street, and this is what I'll be riding on for most of the rest of my ride. Traffic patterns here are much different than they would have been back in when I was doing my commute, because I'm doing this on a Sunday morning and it's almost 10 in the morning now. Whereas back then, I think I started as early as 7 some days, maybe 7:30. I used to start pretty early at this place. And I'll say right now, Victoria Street's really not an ideal biking route, but unfortunately, when you're going east-west in Whitby, there's not a whole lot of options to ride on, except for the main arterials. And it's because of those two reasons that I talked about before, because of the barriers that you have to go over whenever there's something like a highway or a railway or a river that you have to cross. Then you get forced onto the arterials. But also because the minor roads in the neighborhoods are not continuous from one neighborhood to the next. So when we turned that corner back there, we had finished most of the south that we have to do. From here on out, it's mostly west that we're riding into. This is a train bridge that we're going underneath of. The south side of the 401 in Whitby is, at least at this end, is mostly industrial. Not very much residential down here. So this is the commute that I did when I was still in university. With my university program, I did what's called the co-op program, which meant that it was a combination of you went to school for a few months and then you went to work for a few months, and you just alternated back and forth between the two throughout most of your program. A few months ago, I posted a video of me riding, when I was riding, showing my commute that I used to do when I lived in Scarborough, in North Scarborough. And in that video, I showed another one of my commutes that I used to do, and that was to my last work term, my sixth of the 6 work terms. So in that time, I moved to that city to work at that job. For this job, the job was close enough to the house where I grew up with my parents, so I was able to move back in there. And live there for 4 months while I did this work term. This road is still in need of paving. So far we've gone almost 7 kilometers. And right now I'm riding down the middle of this road here, because there's nobody behind me, but back in 2009, I doubt I would have been doing that too often. I would have been very scared riding over by the side. I think I'd ride over here with my bike, and then I would keep my eye in my left-hand mirror to see what's coming behind me, and if I saw someone was coming and they were getting too close to me and I was afraid of them, I'd just come and ride over here on the gravel. I guess riding on the gravel is safer, and with the state of the pavement right now, I think it's actually smoother than the alligatored pavement over there. So yeah, it was 2009 that I did this commute, and this was the first long distance commute that I ever did. Well, it was really only the second job that I consistently bike commuted to. The first one was only about a 5-kilometer ride. This one's about 10 kilometers. So I used to cut through this parking lot here. Just got me off of that road for a few blocks. And this used to be a Rona store, big box home improvement store. But they closed it down a few years ago. Looks like it's still owned by Rona, but maybe they just use it as a warehouse now. It really wasn't open for very long. It's a relatively new building. I think they just have too many big box home improvement stores in Whitby. Well, I guess I should have gone straight there to get out of this parking lot. So now we're back on Victoria Street, which makes a big curve up this way. So this commute was from back in 2009, and it was from the month of September until December. So it was a fall work term, which meant that the September biking month was fantastic, really great warm weather, but not that warm, like just comfortable biking weather. Then October it got a little bit colder, and then November was even colder. And December was quite cold, although not quite as cold as it is in January and February, but colder biking weather than a lot of people are used to. And although the conditions got a little bit snowy near the end, I did still ride my bike to work every single day for this work term. I was very determined to make that accomplishment. I remember one specific day when it was very snowy and it being really challenging getting to work, and a lot of my coworkers that drove to work didn't come in because of the weather. But I was proud to have ridden my bike all the way there. It wasn't easy. I left early so I could be there on time, and sure, it took me all that extra time to get there. So now we're just riding through another big section of big box stores. Lots of them up here. I guess these were the very first big box stores that came to Whitby. So it's got our Home Depot and our Future Shop, Best Buy, Winners, National Sports, HomeSense, Home Outfitters, PetSmart. All the big stores that you go and see in any big box store in the GTA of Canada, of Toronto. Now I noticed on the side here there's this big paved shoulder, presumably acceptable for bikes to be on there. That was certainly not there back in the day when I used to commute, although it ends here, so it wouldn't have done me too much good. So back in those days, I'd get up and very early to get to my job, and I'd eat my breakfast and I'd shave, brush my teeth, and then I'd leave. I wouldn't take my shower at home because this was the very first place that I worked and bike commuted that I had access to a locker room with a shower. So you just get ready in the morning, and then I'd have my shower after I had my morning workout. And that's a great way to do it. I was very lucky that I had a shower there, and any workplace that has a shower I consider pretty lucky, because it makes bike commuting so much easier. Although I wouldn't say it's by any means essential, because I have worked at lots of other places and bike commuted where they didn't have a shower, and I just had my shower at home and just didn't work as hard on my way to work, so I didn't get too sweaty. And then of course I still changed my clothes, but just use a towel to wipe the sweat off of me. So we're very close to the place where I used to work. The company was a trucking company, a transportation logistics kind of place. And I did kind of a industrial engineering kind of apprenticeship kind of thing. That's the building up there on the right, the one that's blue in color. So they located themselves down here near the 401 because so much of their work was, you know, driving on the 401, so they were nice and close to the highway. So my distance is just under 10 kilometers. My moving average today is about 10 kilometers per hour. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me on this retro commute to work. Please leave a comment and let me know what you thought of this video, and thanks for watching.